what do you want to project, what can be practical to project, and how it will get accepted by people. He'll kind of design something and say, wear this. Now, where you buy it, he'll say you can scout for it. He will give you a few names, but he will not try to make money from any of them. The moment he tries to make money, then he's not unbiased, he's biased. He's an agent of the person who's selling that, the shop that's selling that. He's not your agent at all, he's the agent of that. So let's look at the fee payer as the client. Client fees is the only revenue, as we discussed. Next. It has to be unbiased and independent advisory. You can't be tied up with anybody else. You can study, you can learn. For your learning, you can tie up. You can't have money coming in from anybody else other than the person for whom you are advising. That should be very clear. If you're doing it, I believe you have a scope for fee-based approach. The revenue sources through a fee-based could be through, you can charge your client. The common things that I come across is, how do you charge the client? There are a lot of views on this. A lot of new views will be coming into the market. That's something that we'll see. But right now what I see is, you charge by the number of sessions you have with the client or the number of work hours that you have put on this. You charge them on the basis of that. The next, you could also say, try to find out how complex is the goal, and then say, this goal, probably, if this is your objective, looking at it, I would like to charge you so much. But all these charges, you put it to him even before you start your work. Now let's understand an approach to fee-based. What could a person actually give? There has to be something that he will give. Now what could he possibly be giving? I have tried to put in my own way. If I am a fee-based, if I'm working only on a fee-based, what are some of the things, how could I use my learning? What could I try and do? And once I put this, you can then tell me, can we charge for this or not? Will somebody pay for this or not? Okay, the next slide please. Okay, I would start like this, the pitch would go like this. The income pay slip is nothing but your salary slip, so-called loan. When we meet people, they're all earning, they know their salary slip very well. They know what are the things that add to their salary. On the left side, there are some deductions that happen in their salary. Typically, that represents their financial life. When they come to me, they say, I'm earning so much. Which means they relate their entire life to the salary that you're getting right now. So if I speak to someone, he'll say, I'm an AVP here, I'm a this here, I'm working as a sales executive here, I'm working in this company. What is essentially meaning, if you go a little more deeper into him, what he's trying to say is, this is the pay slip that I'm coming, this is my pay slip, this represents my financial life. That's the most common understanding that I have. If I ask someone, how are you doing? He says, I'm doing well in my work. He's actually trying to tell you that I'm working here, this is what I'm earning every month. That's his understanding of his financial life. Some people could understand much more than that, but this is the most common understanding that most people have, that I have encountered. Now, what should we do? Now, CFPs, they try to take the person a little beyond that, into something that will help him. Now, how do we go about it? We show him an example, next one. We say, how is a company evaluated? If we have to, typical question that a prospective bridegroom answers to his father-in-law. Father-in-law says, where are you working? It's not that he's going to understand the culture of the company and decide whether this man is good or not. He typically wants to know, how much roughly are you making? That's how they evaluate the individual. So if you ask the father-in-law how he would evaluate a prospective groom, he'll look at the pay slip. That's about it. But I'm saying there's something beyond that. When you're trying to evaluate an individual, there's something beyond that. How is a company evaluated? You typically evaluate a company by looking at its profit and loss statement. You look at a balance sheet, you look at the cash flows. You try to look here and there, see if there is any irregularities. Try to find out, is this good in the short term? Is this looking right in the long term? And whatever they are stating, are these all accurate or reasonably accurate? All these things can be assessed by this. And that's what typically any analyst would do, studying a company like this. Now my question is, can't we apply a more holistic approach like this to evaluating an individual and presenting a picture to him? Next slide. So what I will do is, we'll try to reevaluate the individual. We'll try to start with the book value or the balance sheet. We'll look at his assets, We'll look at his liabilities and we'll say what are your assets, what are your liabilities. Minus this, how do you look? Does your solvency look right? We'll go to the next one, which is income minus expenses. Does your liquidity look right? In the short term, would you manage it? The first one is the long term, would you manage it? Second is the short term, would you manage it? One step back, please. You want to go one step back? Okay. And then there's the liquidity. We'll have to see what kind of liquidity arrangements have been made and probably what you should be making. You can click on that. Let me show you something that I could quickly make. See, if I have to look at something like this, I quickly could jot down all these things. Now what a financial planner will do is he'll take all of them, put it in a different format. The formatting could be very, very different. But he will focus on each of these areas. Now, if you look at the personal details on the left hand side, it says name, age, current income, children, spouse income. He's capturing certain personal details. The income is also one thing that you try to capture out there. You look down, there's monthly transactions. A lot of the financial planner's time goes into the monthly transaction. It's a very, very elaborate exercise. I've just put in about 3 or 4 things out here, but that could actually take more time than anything else. Then you look at assets on the right hand side. The current valuation, what you could do is you could value add by looking at some of the valuations. If he has a house, he's earning a rent of so much, he doesn't know what is the value of the house. You can give 2-3 different approaches and say the current value of your house could be this. You could help him in that. He's got a few mutual funds, he's got a few insurance policies, he doesn't know the current value. You could go a step further, find out what are the current values of those mutual funds, find out what are the current values of all those life insurance policies. You could do some amount of work in the assets. The easiest thing I have seen in most of the people is to calculate the liabilities. It's very straightforward. There's not too much running around in liabilities. Someone says, I have a personal loan, I have this rate of interest, nothing changes. Somebody has a home loan, if it is a floating rate, it would change here and there. But most of the liabilities are straightforward, very simple. You just need to ensure that people haven't forgotten their liabilities. It should be there. And then you look at the tax, current tax, what the tax could be in future, if you make these, if you implement these solutions, what the tax will become. A little work can be done in the end on that. You could, actually there's a lot of value add that is being done now in 2 areas. What is the risk profile that you're observing in this particular person? Now that is a very, very, very complicated exercise. Mr. Raman wouldn't buy me saying that I can do it for you. A lot of psychometric assessment tests have come in. Financial planners try to use these psychometric assessment tests to understand some of these elements. Because what we are saying is when you say risk profile observed in expenses and in investment, a financial planner can use his experience, his, I'll say, aptitude, his skill, maybe put in about 40% to 50%, and the remaining should come from some psychological kind of a help that he will have, software or could be some test or something like that. With that he could compile this, but this is extremely important. When you see this risk profile observed and risk profile recommended, I always split it. A lot of times what happens is, some people are very conservative when it comes to their expenses. They're doing the right thing by, conservative means they spend a little less than what they can afford. And then when it comes to investment, since they are very conservative when it comes to expenses, they also say, I'll only look at conservative investments. These are 2 different sides to a person. They needn't be the same. Just because you're conservative in this, it is not even a requirement. You don't even need to think while you're trying to invest, you don't need to think how you are in your expenditure. These are 2 different things. Your investment, how your risk profile should be, depends on the goals you have. It doesn't depend on how you spend money. But the most common error that I have noticed in my practice is the people who are conservative in their expenses say, I'm a conservative person. They believe it and then they try to implement it also by ensuring that they only use conservative instruments. It shouldn't be like that. Investment depends on goals. Those goals will tell you what risk to take and you can decide how much of it will you take. That will be the only way forward. And then there is a risk profile that you can recommend. That depends on your skill and you need to do some amount of homework for that. Let's go back. the presentation slide. You have to click on PowerPoint. PowerPoint. Next slide. See, the fee base, if someone were to do something like that, I put in about a few areas, I put in a few Excel sheets. There's a lot of work that goes on below. You could do a lot in any of those areas. Now, that is what you can charge for. Now, you can make better formatting. You can try and make it more elaborate, or you can be the person who will make an elaborate thing and put it very simple to the person. The question here is, what value have you added to them? It's not that you've done the job. It's not that I did 8 pages of calculations. The point is, what value have you added to them? And when you ask what value have you added to them, you have to really ask, after a few years, how did you make them feel? I think I'll also have to come back to the same point. It's not how do you make them feel now. In fact, in what Mr. Aman said, he didn't mean it that way. He didn't say, I came, met you today, I walked away, how did you feel? You felt good, someone listened to you. It's not that. It's not just that. We did something today, 4 years down the lane. How do you feel about it? I think that's the point that we are driving here. If I do something to you today, how do you feel about it later on? Is there value? Whatever I have shown out here, people will do different things in that, and probably they'll add in a few things. But that's essentially what you can do as a fee-based approach. You can look into the person's financial life. You can do a lot of analysis. Not that people don't know. Like if you say, a person says, I know what I'm spending on. Yeah, but do you have a summary of it? Do you have somebody other than you, a third person looking at all your expenses, compiling it and giving it? See, it's like you guys are studying. I tell you why this will be important, getting a third person in. You all study. When you study, what is the most common tip that you all get? Make a plan. Write down what you will study this week, write down what you will study next week. That can help you a lot. Many of us are very hesitant in writing it down, because we feel we write it down, we are responsible for it. So many of our expenses, we feel a little guilty about it. We don't want to look at them. We like to believe that those expenses are not there. Those liabilities are not there. But maybe we'll try to look more deeper into the assets that we have, all the good things that we have. Always nice to get a third person to look at your life. Provided there is confidentiality, you should get a third person to look at it. Now, I personally believe that when I did this slide, I only wrote entrepreneurship. Then I thought, if I don't write a few lines, people won't take this slide seriously. They'll think fee-based is wrong and they'll walk away from it. So I forcibly had to put in a few points. But I think essentially, you should be an entrepreneur for this. Because you have to be independent, you have to be in an advisory position, you must be offering advice which is ethical, fair, unbiased. And unbiased will not come if you're working under someone. Because if you're working for someone and there are going to be pressures of revenue, and you'll have to look at many more things. For example, you'll have to make plans for more number of people. I'm not necessarily saying you'll sell something. You work for a company, your job is only to take a fee and provide service. You can do that. You'll also start noticing that somewhere along, the number of plans that you'll have to make will increase, which means the time that you're going to spend per plan will decrease. Somewhere along you will start seeing it. That's exactly what he was hinting when he spoke earlier. At the moment, it's for entrepreneurship. A lot of people like Sanjeev, I think they're trying to create a career out of it. They will provide employment. They have a firm which will only do consultancy. They will provide employment for financial planners on a fee-based approach. That's something that he is trying to do. Let's look at the next one. See, transaction-based approach, we will go through this. The most common example that you will get, actually Sanjeev will speak on it. He's got an equity brokerage firm also, so they do it. It's basically managing HNIs. Wealth management, manage the HNIs. I consciously didn't want to put that here, because that's the role that we see. And when you say financial planning, that's the thing that immediately comes to your mind. So I don't want to speak about it because that's very evident that role is there. I'd like to put across something else to you that you can think about. Let's go to the next slide. This has been inspired at Toyota. We did some groundwork in Toyota on the HR department did it. There were some issues that were cropping up. All large companies have these issues cropping up. And we did something, and the solution emerged that we should have a financial planner somewhere. He should come in and take control of it. What are we seeing? Essentially, there's a relationship between the employer and employees. The third one is the question mark, financial planner. What role can he play? Is he really required? See, what is happening at the moment is in large companies, let's say the Toyota plant. The Toyota plant is in Bidadi. Now the employer pays the salary to the employee.